Hello and welcome to my Crusader Kings 3 DLC tier list, where I'm going to be going over all of the current DLCs, including the most recent Legacy of Persia. I'm going to be doing my best to rank these based on their value. It's a little bit difficult to rank expansions against flavor packs, against event packs, since they're all kind of different, but I'll do my best to go over them. One thing to keep in mind is that with each of these DLCs came a patch. Sometimes some of the stuff is patch related, sometimes it's DLC related. I'm going to focus on the DLCs themselves, but sometimes those can be a little bit hard to differentiate between. I'm going to be starting with these three cosmetic packs here. Putting them all in C tier just because they don't really do any. Actually, let me just call the C tier cosmetic tier, because that's really what it is. None of them really impact the game, none of them are really that important, but they're all nice to have. They add a little bit of flavor, and that's pretty much it. Tours and Tournaments here is the most recent expansion. Expansions are obviously the biggest DLCs, the most important DLCs. They come with the highest price, but they introduce the most things. Tours and Tournaments is, I think, overwhelmingly the favorite DLC and the most important DLC. It introduced grand tournaments, grand weddings, grand tours. It reworked the system that was already in place in the game of hunts, feasts, and pilgrimages, and made it so you're actually like seeing your character travel around on the map when you're doing any of these things. Also had stuff like the accolade system for knights. Overall, this is the best DLC currently available. Highly recommended. It has great reviews on Steam, and it is easily the most important DLC for the game. Royal Court is much less popular. The other expansion, it's still quite important in my opinion. The throne room and the court grandeur stuff is a little bit underwhelming. The ability to commission great works from inspired people who come to your court is nice, but not really all that interesting. It's definitely less impactful overall than Tours and Tournaments, but it is still a nice DLC. The one thing that I think people forget about this DLC introducing is the complete like cultural system overhaul. Hybridizing and diverging your culture is really, really strong. It makes the cultural system a lot more interesting in this game. It kind of doesn't deserve the hate that it gets from Steam reviews. It's been like negatively Steam review bombed. I can't recommend this to the same extent that I recommend Tours and Tournaments. However, compared to all the rest of the DLC, it is still probably the second most important one. I'm going to put it in A tier just because you can't really put it in the same level as Tours and Tournaments. These are still the two most important DLCs to own, in my opinion. Just because they are expansions, and comparing them to flavor packs and event packs is just a little bit difficult. Overall, making this tier list, it's just very subjective, so keep that in mind. Royal Court is something that I would much more recommend picking it up on sale as opposed to Tours and Tournaments. The flavor packs introduce a whole bunch of new events, decisions, cultural traditions, as well as like art and music and stuff like that. These ones are very, very subjective, because if you don't play in their regions, then the DLC is almost like non-existent, basically. There might be some like limited interaction if you are playing on like the outskirts of the region, where you might get some of the stuff related to the DLC. But overall, unless you are in these regions, then the DLCs are kind of doing nothing for you. So if you have no interest in Persia, you're going to have a much different view. Same thing with Iberia, same thing with the Norse, Vikings. But with that said, the new Legacy of Persia DLC is, in my opinion, probably the best of these three. It introduced the Iranian intermezzo struggle mechanic in the 867 start, and I think that they did a good job in this one of learning from the mistakes of the Fate of Iberia struggle mechanic, the Iberian struggle, in that it's a little bit easier to end, it's a little bit more interactive, it feels less clunky overall. I think that they did a very good job. The rework of the clan government system is really, really top notch. It makes playing clan government a lot more fun. The Iranian cultures in the area became a lot more interesting with this, and then of course you got the new dynastic legacy brilliance, the brilliance tree. For me, this is S tier. I really enjoy this. Again, I don't think it's as impactful as Royal Court, especially since it's region specific, but just overall, the strength of the DLC when I compare them to just the other flavor packs, for me, Legacy of Iberia is really great. Legacy of Persia. Fate of Iberia is still very good, I think. The struggle mechanic is fun, but a little bit clunky. They needed to do a little bit better job of making it easier to end, I feel. Sometimes if you're not playing in Iberia and you just go and have a look at how the Iberian struggle is going when you're, 200 years into the game, it's just still going, and none of the AI can ever end it, really. They've done a good job updating it recently, to the point where if you just take over all of Iberia, you can end it with dominance without meeting all the other kind of over-the-top requirements that you had to do before. The Iberian cultures got a lot more in-depth with this, which is a good thing, and you have these dynastic legacies in the same way that are quite good for when you're playing in Iberia. Overall, I do think that it's just a little bit worse, though. I'm going to put it in A tier. Legacy of Persia is a little bit stronger. Northern Lords, for me, is on a similar level of these two. I play Norsemen less personally, so this is kind of like one of those more subjective things, where if you play these Asatru Norsemen a lot, then this is going to be one of your most important DLCs, and if you don't, then it's not going to be too impactful. This DLC introduced the ability to go on these Varangian adventures, so if you're one of those guys who likes to play Hastings and like take them all the way into India or whatever, then like this is kind of your DLC for doing that. The Yams, Vikings, and Shield Maidens, more in-depth Norse culture, and then again you have those new dynastic legacies for Norsemen, which are pretty strong. It completely depends on what you like to play. For me, I'm just going to put this one lower than the other two because I enjoy playing in Iberia and Persia more than I do playing in Northern Europe. But your mileage may vary on these. They're all honestly very similar. This is just my own personal ranking. This is totally subjective because it's just based on which regions you like to play in. I mean, no disrespect to the Northern Lords DLC. It is easily on the same level as these other two. It's just really about where you enjoy playing personally. And then finally, these two event packs. Friends and Foes was introduced first and got massively negatively review bombed on Steam because they had never introduced an event pack before, and a lot of people felt like this should be a free thing. The price point is very reasonable, in my opinion. It mostly focuses on events, and anything that adds more events into the game is just adding some like variety into the game, I think. I would rather play with both of these than without them. They kind of have more lasting power in that they impact the game no matter where you're playing, more so than the flavor packs. If you're not playing in one of the flavor pack regions, then these are actually better than the flavor packs. So the Friends and Foes introduced mostly events focusing on friendship and rivalry dynamics. The House Feud system came with this flavor pack, which is sometimes you feel like you should be getting a feud with a house, and you don't, and then sometimes you just get a feud pop up out of nowhere with a house that you don't even really know why you're getting a feud with them. And then also the memory system, which I think I opened on one character one time on the day that the DLC came out, and I was like, oh look, this is a new thing, and then I don't know if I've ever looked at memories ever again. So probably still the worst DLC overall of the non-cosmetic DLCs, but not as terrible as the Steam reviews might lead you to believe if you've looked at the Steam reviews for it. Wards and Wardens is the other event pack and is probably better overall than Friends and Foes. Um, Still, some people just think the event pack should be free or whatever, but that's just not going to happen. This one is mostly focusing on child rulers, if you play as one, or raising your children. You get the wet nurse new job and the university visit, which is really nice, I think, and that alone makes this DLC kind of worthwhile because the university visit is a very, very powerful mechanic that you can use. And then as well the hostage system, which is not my favorite overall thing that they introduced, but it does have its use applications. So overall, I do think that this deserves a spot kind of a little bit higher than Friends and Foes. Again, I don't mean to disrespect Northern Lords by putting an event pack above it. It's just it's important to understand context when looking at this tier list. So with that, the season 2 DLCs were Tours and Tournaments, Legacy of Persia, and Wards and Wardens, and in my opinion, they were all excellent. And I'm really looking forward to whatever season 3 DLCs they come out with next year, because 2023 has kind of been a resurgence, I feel, for Crusader Kings 3 and has really renewed my interest in the game. Whereas it took them like a year and a half just to get out the first few DLCs, so now that they are kind of pushing out 3 or 4, if you want to include the cosmetic pack per year, it feels like a bright future ahead of us. So I'm looking forward to a good 2024, hopefully, of some more DLCs, but we'll have to see what we get whenever they announce the next season pack or whatever. But with that said, I don't really have anything else to say, so thank you for watching this. I hope you got some value out of it if you're thinking about buying the DLCs. If you enjoyed watching this, please subscribe and leave me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.